I'm going to expose the real reason black people use the N-word.
How are you now? Well, let's all listen.
The real reason they use the N-word is not because it's a term of endearment. That's a lie.
Really? Well, I hope this means he did some historical research into the origin of the N-word and the use in the black community and the historical significance.
Here's the real reason. Because they're hypocrites.
Oh, so we're just saying bullshit now. Gee Williker, I hope that whatever you point at black people for being hypocritical about cannot be immediately applied to a different demographic in the exact same way.
They use it because they feel it's okay for them to do it, but no one else can do it. Black people kill black people at an 89% rate. Do you see anyone protesting over that? You only see people protesting for white folks killing black people. That only makes up 7%. You see the connection?
No, quite frankly, I don't.
Quite frankly, I don't fucking see how you do either. Most homicides are intraracial. Between 1980 and 2008, 84% of white victims of homicide were killed by other white offenders. In 2018, 81% of white victims were killed by white people. 89% of black victims were killed by black people. In 2017, 80% of white victims were killed by white people. 88% of black victims were killed by black people. When looking at all violent crime in 2020, when there was a white victim, there was a white offender 69.2% of the time. When there was a black victim, there was a black offender 65.7% of the time. When there was a Hispanic victim, there was a Hispanic offender 41.3% of the time.
I guess everyone's a fucking hypocrite because we don't constantly harp on and condemn demographics of people for interracial crime, even though most crime is interracial crime. You know what would make this take doubly fucking stupid? If it turned out that when looking at fatalities caused by use of police lethal force from 17 different states, black people were overrepresented relative to their population. Fatality rate was 2.8 times higher, and black people were more likely than white people to be unarmed. Hence why there's so many protests about police brutality. Hey, you know what would make this take triply fucking stupid?
If it turned out that, hey, shocker, black people don't actually like when they're killed by other black people and they protest over that too.
You see anyone protesting over that? You see anyone protesting over that? Protesting over that? Protesting over that? It's okay for rappers to disrespect black women, but as soon as a white person does it, they seem to have a problem with it.
Hey, you know what would be crazy? If predominantly white musicians singing in predominantly white genres were singing about these exact same things, disrespecting women, like a lot, like a pretty decent amount, like a sizable portion, like a pretty good number, like fairly substantial amounts. But somehow we only hear about when black people do it. Must I remind you what has happened to black men when they disrespect white women? Hey, you know what would make this take even more dumb? If despite the problems that black men have had historically and in current day with disrespecting black women, society is now changing and now people are starting to face backlash for disrespecting black women, like even anybody disrespecting black women, like a fair amount of backlash to people who will say dumb shit like this, like a fair amount of backlash, like a decent amount of backlash, like continued backlash, because it turns out the black community is not a monolith who just thinks it's okay to disrespect black women.
Because liberals have fooled them into thinking it is perfectly fine for you to do something that is destructive to yourself, but no one else can.
JJ here while editing. Literally fucking yes. If I did self-harm because I'm depressed, that doesn't make it okay for other people to come cut me as well. And that's something that's actually harmful. You just decided that the N-word is harmful to black people when they use it.
So in conclusion, black people don't use the N-word
because the word has gone under multiple meaning changes, going back to its first English documented usage in 1574, with it originally being described as being used as a more neutral description word, still carrying some passive-aggressive negative undertones, but nowhere near the overt racial slur that it became.
And when many Africans arrived in the Americas and were separated from their countrymen, thus they were amongst people who didn't speak their same language, while also trying to learn a foreign language in English, they picked the N-word up in their lexicon around 1715, due to it being commonly used to refer to people who look like them, and due to the many dialects of Western Africa, this is why we hear it pronounced with an A and not with the ER that it was originally being used with. And as slaves continued to get used to the environment they were placed in and trying to figure out different ways to escape and communicate amongst each other, a counter language began to develop. Because believe it or not, slaves did not have some mindset that they were inherently inferior. They had the mindset of human beings whose rights were trampled on. They also saw themselves as survivors and employed multiple survival strategies, so they fashioned their counter language in ways that only they could really understand, much in the same way closeted gay people did back in the day. So it became a term that Africans used to refer to themselves and their companions in a struggle to survive and keep their identity, which in large part is what it informs in the modern usage today by African Americans. When used among each other, it's meant to convey a cultural sense of meaning, identity, belonging, and surviving in a constantly abrasive environment. The original version that was initially neutral evolved in a much different way, becoming more of a racial slur at the same time as more black people became free, and abolitionism became more prominent, and tying negative social meanings to the word in order to dehumanize black people. Hence why many black people have a problem to this day with white people saying it, because when they did have it and it was a neutral word, they turned it into something used against black people. Whereas black people were using the same word at the same time to convey solidarity and companionship amongst each other. None of that's the reason. It's because me, who hasn't done a picosecond of research into the history of anything having to do with the N-word, just decided that it's because black people are hypocrites. How does one come to a conclusion like this? Like, it's genuinely
I know that I have a lot of white followers.
Oh, okay. Nigga, get the fuck out of here.